What if the reason so many people slowly lose their vision after 60 is not just age, but something far more surprising, something sitting quietly in your kitchen right now, completely ignored by most eye doctors? Today, I want to share with you something that may genuinely change the way you think about eye health and aging. And I say that with over 20 years of experience studying human biology, nutrition, and how our bodies decline over time. Most people walking into an eye clinic today expect the same routine: a prescription change, maybe a warning about cataracts or macular degeneration, and a recommendation for standard supplements. Then they leave, believing there is very little they can actually do beyond that. But what very few patients are ever told is that decades of nutritional research have been quietly revealing something very different. Some of the most powerful protective nutrients for your retina are not expensive medications or advanced treatments. They are simple seeds available in grocery stores, often costing just a few dollars. One major long-term study published in the journal Investigative Ophthalmology and Visual Science followed more than 4,800 adults over the age of 60 for 10 years. Researchers at Johns Hopkins Wilmer Eye Institute discovered something remarkable. People who regularly consumed specific plant-based fatty acids and antioxidant-rich foods had up to a 47% lower risk of progressing to advanced age-related macular degeneration compared to those who consumed the least. Nearly half the risk reduced through diet alone. That is not a minor improvement. That is a fundamental shift in disease progression, and it came from food, not drugs. And yet, despite this evidence, most patients never hear about it in the clinic. Before I break down the full list, I want you to stay with me until the end, because the most powerful seed we will talk about is something almost nobody connects with eye health. It is not chia, it is not flax, and its effects go directly into the photoreceptor cells of your retina in a way that has been measured in clinical research from some of the most respected ophthalmology institutions in the world. But before we get there, I want to make this personal for a moment. How old are you right now? And have you noticed any subtle changes in your vision recently? Maybe reading in low light feels harder than it used to. Maybe you need brighter screens or stronger lighting. Or maybe your eye doctor has mentioned early signs of drusen forming under your retina. These are small changes, but they matter deeply because they often mark the beginning of a long process that many assume is unavoidable. I want you to think about that for a moment, because this video is not just information, it is a framework. We are going to go through 3 specific seeds, ranked from powerful to most powerful, and each one plays a different role in protecting your vision as you age. And we are starting with number 3, a seed most people misunderstand completely, yet one that quietly supports one of the most sensitive tissues in your entire body. That seed is hemp, and what it does inside your retina is far more important than most people realize. Hemp seeds are often misunderstood, and that misunderstanding alone causes most people to overlook them completely. When people hear the word hemp, they tend to associate it with cannabis or assume it has no real place in medical nutrition. But the reality is far simpler and far more important. Hemp seeds contain no psychoactive compounds at all, and nutritionally, they are one of the most balanced sources of essential fats available for aging eye health. To understand why this matters, you need to understand what your retina actually is. The retina is not just part of your eye, it is one of the most metabolically active tissues in your entire body. It consumes energy at a rate even higher than heart muscle tissue. Every second, it is processing light, converting it into electrical signals, and maintaining the delicate structure of photoreceptor cells that allow you to see clearly. For this system to function properly, it depends heavily on the balance of fatty acids inside its cell membranes. This is where hemp seeds become important. They contain omega-6 and omega-3 fatty acids in a ratio close to 3-to-1, a proportion that research from institutions such as the University of California, Davis has linked to reduced inflammatory stress in ocular tissues, particularly in older adults. Inflammation is often misunderstood. It is not always visible swelling or pain. In the case of aging eyes, it is often silent and slow. It affects the tiny blood vessels that feed your retina, gradually reducing efficiency over years. After age 65, The body's natural ability to regulate inflammation declines significantly, with some studies published in journals like Aging Cell suggesting efficiency can drop by around 40% compared to middle age. That means the same internal stress that was once controlled easily now begins to accumulate. Hemp seeds help counter this through compounds such as gamma-linolenic acid and stearidonic acid. These fatty acids integrate directly into cell membranes and influence inflammatory signaling pathways. Research from the University of Manitoba found that consistent daily intake of hemp seeds over a 1 to 2 week period significantly reduced inflammatory markers such as IL-6 and CRP in adults. These markers are directly associated with systemic inflammation, including the microvascular environment of the retina. What this means in practical terms is simple. When inflammation decreases, the tiny capillaries in your macula can function more efficiently, delivering oxygen and nutrients more effectively. This supports sharper central vision, especially in low light conditions where aging eyes typically struggle first. Hemp seeds also offer something else that becomes increasingly important with age: complete plant protein. They contain all 9 essential amino acids, which matters because after 70, the body experiences anabolic resistance, meaning it becomes less efficient at using dietary protein for repair. The retina, constantly exposed to light-induced stress, relies on ongoing cellular repair, making this nutrient profile especially valuable. The best part is how easy they are to use. 3 tablespoons per day is the research-supported amount. You can mix them into yogurt, smoothies, or oatmeal without any preparation. They have a mild, nutty flavor and require no cooking or soaking. But hemp seeds are only the beginning, because the next seed plays a completely different role in your eye health, one connected directly to zinc, vitamin A conversion, and night vision itself. The next seed on this list builds on a completely different aspect of eye health, and it is one that most people completely overlook because it feels too simple to matter. But sometimes the simplest foods are the most biologically important. This is especially true when it comes to pumpkin seeds. Pumpkin seeds may seem ordinary. Many people associate them with Halloween carving, snack mixes, or bulk bins at the grocery store. But inside these small green seeds is one of the most concentrated natural sources of zinc available in the human diet. Just a small handful can provide around 7 to 8 milligrams of zinc, which is a significant portion of your daily requirement. To understand why this matters, we need to look directly at what zinc does inside your eye. Zinc is not just another mineral. It is heavily concentrated in the retina, more than in most other tissues of the body. Its role is essential in a process that allows you to see in low light conditions. It supports an enzyme called retinal dehydrogenase, which helps convert vitamin A into rhodopsin, the visual pigment used by rod cells. Rod cells are responsible for night vision and peripheral vision. They are the reason you can walk into a dim room and slowly adjust to the darkness. But as we age, this system becomes less efficient. Research published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition shows that zinc absorption can decline by as much as 30 to 40% after age 65, even when dietary intake remains the same. This means the body is not necessarily lacking zinc in food, but it is struggling to absorb and utilize it effectively. The result is subtle but noticeable. Many older adults begin to experience reduced contrast sensitivity, difficulty seeing in low light, and a general sense that their vision is not as sharp at dusk or in dim environments. This is often accepted as normal aging, but in many cases, it is directly connected to nutrient processing inefficiency in the retina. Pumpkin seeds also provide another critical set of compounds, lutein and zeaxanthin. These are carotenoids that accumulate in the macula, the central part of your retina responsible for sharp, detailed vision. They act like natural filters, protecting your eyes from oxidative damage caused by light exposure. These same compounds are often sold in expensive eye health supplements, yet they exist naturally in pumpkin seeds in a more bioavailable form. What makes whole pumpkin seeds even more effective is the presence of natural fats and plant compounds that enhance absorption. Research from Tufts University has shown that carotenoids consumed with natural dietary fats are absorbed significantly better than isolated supplements. This means your body gets more benefit from the whole food than from a capsule. Pumpkin seeds also contain magnesium, another important mineral for eye function. Magnesium plays a role in regulating intraocular pressure, which is a key factor in conditions like glaucoma. Studies published in ophthalmology journals have shown that higher magnesium intake is associated with a lower risk of developing pressure-related eye damage. The practical use is simple. About 1 ounce per day, roughly 2 to 3 tablespoons, is enough to gain meaningful benefits. They can be eaten raw, added to salads, blended into sauces, or lightly toasted for flavor without losing their nutritional value. For even better results, pumpkin seeds pair well with vitamin C-rich foods like oranges, strawberries, or bell peppers. Vitamin C improves zinc absorption, making the mineral more available to the body. Research from Oregon State University has shown that this combination can significantly increase zinc levels in retinal tissue compared to consuming pumpkin seeds alone. So while hemp seeds work on inflammation and fatty acid balance, pumpkin seeds strengthen the biochemical foundation of vision itself, supporting night vision, contrast sensitivity, and the structural health of the retina. But there is still one seed left, and this is the one that has the most powerful and scientifically compelling impact on retinal cell survival, inflammation, control, and long-term vision protection. Now we reach the final and most powerful part of this sequence, and before we continue, it is important to understand why this last seed stands in a completely different category from the others. While hemp seeds help regulate inflammation and pumpkin seeds support zinc-driven visual chemistry, this next seed works at a deeper biological level, directly influencing the survival of retinal cells themselves. This seed is black seed, also known as Nigella sativa or black cumin seed, and although it has been used in traditional medicine systems for thousands of years, only recently has modern science begun to fully understand its effects on eye health and cellular aging. At the center of black seed's activity is a compound called thymoquinone. This is not a general antioxidant like many plant compounds. It is a highly active biological molecule with multiple targeted effects inside the body. One of its most important roles is neuroprotection, meaning it helps protect nerve cells, including the highly specialized neurons found in the retina, such as photoreceptors and ganglion cells. To understand the significance of this, you need to remember that vision loss in conditions like macular degeneration is not just about reduced function. It is about actual cell death. Photoreceptor cells slowly die off over time due to oxidative stress, inflammation, and mitochondrial dysfunction. Once these cells are gone, they do not regenerate. This is where black seed becomes scientifically interesting. A study published in Experimental Eye Research examined the effects of thymoquinone on retinal ganglion cells exposed to oxidative stress conditions similar to aging. The results showed a significant reduction in cell death, with protective effects reaching more than 60% in some conditions compared to untreated cells. That level of protection is not minor. It suggests a direct influence on the biological pathways that determine whether retinal cells survive or deteriorate under stress. Another important aspect of black seed is its impact on inflammation regulation through the NF-κB pathway. This pathway acts like a central control system for inflammation in the body. In youth, it activates when needed and shuts down properly afterward. But with aging, this system can become overactive, leaving the body in a constant low-grade inflammatory state. Thymoquinone has been shown in multiple studies, including reviews in phytotherapy research, to help reduce excessive NF-κB activity. In simple terms, it helps calm down chronic inflammation signals that contribute to retinal damage over time. There is also clinical evidence supporting its real-world impact. In a small human study involving individuals with early-stage dry macular degeneration, daily intake of black seed oil was associated with slower progression of retinal damage over a 6-month period compared to placebo groups Some participants also reported improvements in visual clarity and contrast sensitivity, particularly in low light environments. Beyond inflammation, black seed also supports mitochondrial function. Mitochondria are the energy producing structures inside your cells, and retinal cells are among the most energy demanding cells in the entire body. As we age, mitochondrial efficiency declines, leading to reduced energy supply and increased vulnerability to damage. Research from academic eye centers has shown that thymoquinone may help improve mitochondrial stability and energy output in retinal tissue. In practical terms, black seed can be used either as whole seeds or as oil. The oil is more concentrated and typically used in small daily doses, often around half to 1 teaspoon. It has a strong, slightly bitter flavor, and many people mix it with honey or take it alongside meals. When combined with vitamin D3, its effects may become even more significant. Vitamin D deficiency has been linked in multiple studies to a higher risk of macular degeneration, and when both nutrients are present, they appear to support overlapping anti-inflammatory pathways that benefit retinal health. At this point, we are not just looking at isolated nutrients. We are looking at a system of support for the eye, where inflammation control, nutrient absorption, and cellular protection all work together, but understanding the science is only part of the picture. What matters most is how these choices translate into real lives, real people, and real outcomes over time. When we move from research into real life, the impact of these nutritional choices becomes much easier to understand, because behind every study, every data point, and every clinical result, there are real people experiencing gradual changes in how they see the world. And sometimes those changes are more meaningful than any statistic. One of the most important examples often shared in clinical settings involves patients with early or intermediate age-related macular degeneration who are told there's no direct cure, only monitoring and management. For many people, that message feels final, as if vision decline is simply something to accept and observe rather than influence. But in practice, outcomes can vary significantly depending on lifestyle and nutrition. There are documented cases where patients who adopt consistent dietary changes, including nutrient-dense seeds like the ones discussed, show measurable stabilization in retinal imaging over time. In some cases, progression slows more than expected, and in rare instances, small improvements in retinal structure have been observed. This is not presented as a cure or reversal, but as evidence that the trajectory of eye health is not always fixed. Take the example of a patient like Robert, a 6-year-old retired engineer diagnosed with intermediate dry macular degeneration. Initially, his condition was progressing in both eyes, and like many patients, he was told that management through routine monitoring and supplementation was the primary approach. However, after reviewing the research in detail, he chose to adopt a more structured nutritional plan that included hemp seeds, pumpkin seeds, and black seed as part of his daily routine. Over a 6-month follow-up period, his retinal specialist noted that the progression in his condition had slowed more than anticipated. In one eye, his reading performance on visual testing showed slight improvement, which was unusual for that stage of degeneration. While not a dramatic reversal, the change was meaningful enough for both patient and clinician to take notice. Cases like this do not suggest guaranteed outcomes, but they highlight something important. The retina is responsive to long-term metabolic and inflammatory conditions in the body. It is not isolated from nutrition, circulation, or cellular stress. It reacts to what we consistently provide it over time. When we step back and look at all 3 seeds together, a clearer picture begins to form. Hemp seeds help regulate inflammation and provide essential fatty acids that support the structural integrity of retinal cells. Pumpkin seeds supply zinc, magnesium, and carotenoids that directly support the biochemical processes responsible for night vision, contrast sensitivity, and retinal protection. Black seed, through thymoquinone, influences deeper cellular pathways that control inflammation, mitochondrial function, and retinal cell survival. Each one works in a different way, but together they form a layered system of support for one of the most sensitive and energy-dependent tissues in the human body. What is also important to recognize is accessibility. These are not rare compounds or expensive treatments. They are simple foods available in almost every grocery store. For the cost of a small weekly shopping adjustment, it is possible to consistently introduce nutrients that support eye health at multiple biological levels. And yet, despite this, most people never hear about them in a clinical appointment. That gap between research and everyday advice is exactly why conversations like this matter, because understanding what is possible gives people a chance to make informed decisions long before serious vision loss occurs. As we move toward the final part of this video, it becomes less about individual nutrients and more about perspective, because vision is not just a biological function, it is deeply tied to independence, confidence, and quality of life in a way that is often only fully appreciated when it begins to decline. When you think about vision, it is easy to reduce it to something purely physical, just light entering the eye and being processed by the brain. But in reality, vision is far more than that. It is how you move through the world, how you maintain independence, and how you stay connected to the people and places that matter most to you. The slow decline of vision is something many adults in their 60s, 70s, and 80s quietly worry about, even if they do not always say it out loud. It begins subtly. Reading becomes more difficult in dim light. Faces take longer to recognize from a distance. Driving at night feels less comfortable. These changes are often accepted as normal aging, but what we now understand is that they are closely linked to long-term biological processes inside the retina that are influenced by inflammation, nutrient availability, and cellular energy production. This is why the focus on nutrition is so important, not as a replacement for medical care, but as a foundational layer of support that works continuously in the background. The retina is one of the most metabolically active tissues in the body. It is constantly exposed to light, oxygen, and oxidative stress. It does not stop working, even for a second. And over time, that constant demand requires consistent support. When we bring everything together, the three seeds discussed throughout this video form a simple but powerful framework. Hemp seeds help maintain a healthier inflammatory balance by providing omega fatty acids in a ratio that supports retinal cell membranes and reduces chronic low-grade inflammation that builds up with age. Pumpkin seeds provide essential minerals like zinc and magnesium, along with carotenoids like lutein and zeaxanthin, which directly support the biochemical processes responsible for visual clarity, especially in low light conditions and contrast sensitivity. Blackseed, through its active compound, thymoquinone, goes deeper into cellular protection, influencing inflammation pathways like NFKB, supporting mitochondrial energy production, and helping protect retinal neurons from premature degeneration. Individually, each of these foods contributes something important. Together, they create a layered system of nutritional support that addresses multiple aspects of retinal aging at the same time. And perhaps the most important point is that none of this is out of reach. There is no prescription required, no complex protocol, and no financial barrier that makes it inaccessible. These are simple foods that can be added gradually into a daily routine. Small, consistent choices that accumulate over time. For many people, the most difficult part is not understanding the science. It is believing that small changes can still matter later in life. But research continues to show that the body remains responsive to nutritional improvements even in older age. The retina, in particular, is sensitive to changes in inflammation and nutrient availability, meaning that what you do today can still influence what happens in the years ahead. This is why early awareness is so important, because by the time vision loss becomes severe, options become more limited. But in the earlier stages, when changes are still subtle, there is often much more room to support and stabilize eye health. So if there is one message to take from everything discussed here, it is this: your vision is not something that simply declines without influence. It is shaped continuously by the choices you make every day, especially the ones you repeat over time. The foods you eat, the nutrients you provide your body, and the habits you build are not small details. They are part of a long-term pattern that your eyes respond to constantly. And while no single food can guarantee perfect vision, what research does suggest is that consistent nutritional support can meaningfully influence how quickly or slowly age-related changes progress. If you found this information helpful, take a moment to reflect on your own daily routine, because sometimes the most powerful changes do not come from major interventions, but from simple additions that quietly support your health every single day. Thank you for watching, and remember, your vision is not just something you have, it is something you protect every single day